It's not just about Marlee winning an Academy Award, an Oscar, but it's also about the deaf experience in so many different ways, and the making of the film, too.
I'm curious what you can share about how this project initially came to you, I believe, on Marlee's recommendation.
American Masters approached me and asked about doing a story on me, and I said, all right. My first thought was, it has to be perfect. It's not an easy story to tell. And in my opinion, I thought, well, how is this story going to be told? It's great, yes, but... So I said, look, fine. You can do it on one condition. I need to have a deaf woman direct it. And the American Masters people said, okay, well, we have a woman on board. And I said, well, that's great, but I need to have a deaf woman because she'll be able to get me. And they said, who? I said, Shoshannah Stern. They said, oh, has she directed before? And I said, no. And they were fine with it. And the reason is because what we call a deaf lens. Two women who are deaf, who understand life experiences as deaf women.
What can you share about your relationship with Shoshannah and why you were confident that she would make a perfect film, as you say, in the way that you wanted?
I think it was because I could have chosen anyone really to direct this. I could have. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of directors. But for her to do this, to tell my story, I thought that having Shoshannah would make it more authentic. It was so fun to have this conversation with her, have a talk. And by fun, I mean I was in a comfortable space and in my element. I was feeling safe. I was ready to just tell my story.
So Shoshannah, as you got into the project, learned you were going to be doing this with Marlee, what were some of those initial decisions you felt you had to make as a filmmaker about the way that the story would be told, your own involvement on screen in the film? How did you have those initial make those initial sort of decisions?
I knew that this was a huge amount of trust that was placed in me by Marlee and everyone else that worked on the project. And I didn't take that trust lightly. I knew that I had to make up for my lack of experience by bringing something that I had within my lived experience. So making sure that I stayed in tune with that the whole way through the project, I had to. And so I started doing a lot of research for this documentary, and I've always loved documentary films, but I've never realized until I took the job, when I was thinking about how to tell Marlee's story, I realized, oh, the form of documentary, as we're used to watching it, as we know it, it's sound-based. Because for a long time, by people who are using a spoken language, interviewing somebody else who's also using a spoken language for people who are receiving the information via spoken language. So this whole rhythm that we're so used to showing in archival, like we usually have archival with voiceover, but then we're not able to see the person's face. And so how are we going to do voiceover with someone who's using sign language and somebody else's voice, spoken voice? It wouldn't be Marlee's voice. We needed her face, her body, her hands. That's technically her voice. So how are we going to do that? And so we had this development period. It was 1 year long, and we were picking our team, and I met some really amazing, some wonderful people who were so well-versed in documentary, so experienced. And we had this idea of how we're going to change the form. And we thought, okay, maybe we could do a split screen, and maybe we could use more cameras. And in some of the interviews that we had, there were others that were saying, oh no, we haven't done it that way before. I'm like, okay, I understand. You're right. It hasn't been done before. But if people started to use the word challenge in their interviews, that was just like an instinct for me that I'm like, no, I want to use the I want to use the word opportunity. Like, let's take this opportunity. Let's take the chance to explore what it could look like instead of it being a challenge. So we had a visual-based documentary. What would that look like? Let's reimagine the sound design. And if we're not going to have voiceover, what does it look like to have people using sign language? And some people that we interviewed thought it was going to be so cool, and so I picked them to be on my team, and we just made it really fun. I wanted to figure out how people would be able to understand our story, understand our experience, relate to us, how we receive information. So we made this experience more inviting so that you can experience the same world that we live in, just in a different way.
Marlee, I'm curious what your level of, I suppose, awareness was of the way that Shoshannah was planning on making this film. Obviously, you've put forward some amazing archival materials. You're having this very intimate conversation. But what was your experience of making the film versus then watching what she had made?
Believe it or not, I had zero ideas of what she was planning to do. I was never part of the whole process of making this film. I never asked her what she would be doing, what her vision was, who she would be interviewing. I didn't want to worry. I didn't want to try to force them to make their changes or edit their comments. I'm a Virgo, you have to understand, so I'm very exact. And I can be a control freak. But at the same time, it was better to just step away and let her be the creative entity to take all the time to put this together in her way, the way she wanted to see the film. And the first time I saw it, my mind was blown.
It wasn't an interview. It was a conversation between the two of us, like you saw. And I wanted Marlee to lead it, and she had the power to tell her own story herself. She started to lead, and I was there experiencing what she was feeling with her, offering what context I could as someone who had gone through those experiences myself and doing what someone I wish had told me. I didn't know. There is a statistic that 3 out of 4 deaf women in the community experience that. And I think it's because what we see in film and media. But you need someone there just to be with you to talk about those things. And that's the title of our film, Not Alone Anymore. It's not just about Marlee winning an Academy Award, an Oscar, but it's also about the deaf experience in so many different ways, and the making of the film too. And so it started as a conversation between the two of us. And Marlee went everywhere. She wanted to. She felt ready. And I'm really grateful. I'm really proud that Marlee has been brave enough to trust me with her experience and her stories.
This has been a healing process for me, the entire journey. I'm very grateful for that. It continues to be a healing process.
Congratulations to you both on this film, and thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching.